From the Arabic to argue or discuss, the Kalam cosmological argument traces its roots to Islamic scholars writing around the turn of the first millennium. However, William Lane Craig, arguably its most notable proponent, is largely responsible for its popularity among Western religious apologists today, thanks to his book on the subject, as well as his career of public debates. However, other types of cosmological argument have been present in Western philosophy since long before Craig, largely thanks to the works of Thomas Aquinas. A cosmological argument relies on the idea of causation, that is, cause and effect. Everything has a cause, noted Aquinas. The universe is a thing, and therefore the universe should have a cause. Now, Aquinas proposed 5 famous ways of proving God, which you've probably already come across if you've studied philosophy, and the first 3 or 4 of which, depending on who you ask, are collectively known as Aquinas' cosmological arguments. Aquinas' first way refers to motion, the idea that there are things in the universe that are in motion, and to put something in motion there must be an already moving entity applying some kind of force to it. And by the laws of causation, there must have been some kind of first mover to set the first thing in motion. His second way refers to cause. Things in the universe have causes, and therefore there must have been a first cause too. And his third way refers to contingency, the idea that some things in the universe rely on something else for their existence. For instance, you and I rely on our parents. Plants and flowers rely on their seeds being planted to exist. And again, if you trace things back far enough, you'll eventually get to the first mover, the non-contingent necessary being, and Aquinas called this God. Now, you can probably recognize that all 3 of these arguments rely on practically the same logic. That is, every effect in the universe has a cause, and without some kind of Aristotelian unmoved mover, you'd end up with an infinite regress, this idea of causation just going back and back and back forever, and there'd be no reason for it to have got started at all, no reason for the universe to exist. But hang on a second. God surely is also a thing. So if everything has a cause, then what caused God? Well, this is where the Kalam cosmological argument comes in. It makes one small adjustment to the original premises. Instead of saying that everything has a cause, it says that everything that begins to exist has a cause. And God has always existed, he never began, and therefore is exempt from this infinite regress. And hey presto, problem solved, right? Well, no, and let me tell you why. Firstly, you may have noticed that I referred to this first mover just then as God, as he. But there's a world of difference between proving the existence of some kind of arbitrary first mover and proving the existence of a God, and especially your particular God. Even if the Kalam cosmological argument was sound, which I hope to prove to you that it's not, it still wouldn't prove any particular God. Now, Frank Turek, who we've encountered before on this channel, has had this contention put to him on more than one occasion, and he attempts to get around it by claiming that whatever it was that caused the universe had to be some kind of personal being, because it had to make a choice in creating the universe. Here's a clip from one of his videos called From the Kalam to the Biblical God.
And then also personal. Why does the being need to be personal? Because in order to make a choice, which is what you have to do in order to go from a state of nothingness to a state of creation, you have to be a person.
But Turek and others like him fail to consider the fact that consciousness is not always needed as a driving force behind something happening. I mean, does a leaf choose to fall off of a tree? But even if you could prove that there was some kind of consciousness behind the universe, Turek still makes no link as to why this would need to be a personal God. I mean, who's to say this God would still be around? Who's to say that it cares about humans or intervenes in worldly affairs? And for that matter, who's to say that it would be one God? Why not some kind of polytheistic council? And who's to say that it's not some kind of evil God with evil intentions? The list is unending. This argument offers absolutely no specificities on the nature of this prime mover. And look, this whole argument exists for the sake of it being impossible for there to be an infinite regress of causation. But is that really an impossibility? I mean, to be sure, our observable universe did have a beginning. The Big Bang did happen. I mean, you can actually see it with the right kind of telescope. In fact, if you want to see a video on some proofs for the Big Bang, do let me know in the comments. It's been something that I've been considering doing for a while, so if you want to see that, do let me know. Now, theists often point to the Big Bang and say, well look, here's the beginning of everything in existence. There must have been some kind of cause behind it. But hold on, because the Big Bang has never claimed to be the beginning of everything. Rather, it's only ever claimed to be the beginning of everything that we know of. Perhaps there were universes before ours. Perhaps the death of one universe is the Big Bang of the next, and this could be some kind of infinite chain. Perhaps there's a multiverse, and not even a multiverse of separate entities, but maybe one large, infinitely large fabric in which there are sort of localized areas of activity, one of which is our observable universe, which did have its own beginning. There's simply no way for us to know. Aquinas, Craig, and Turek alike assume some kind of singular grand beginning to not only our universe, but anything that does, will, and can exist. And there's simply no proof to back this up. There's a lot that we don't know about the laws of physics. There's probably a lot that we can't know about the laws of physics. I mean, let's not forget that we are constrained to one single universe. There's no way for us to compare it with any others. We can test things within the universe because we can make control variables when we have more than one example of the thing that we're trying to test. But we shouldn't be so naive to assume that everything that applies to things within the universe also applies to the universe itself. To do so is to commit the fallacy of composition, and this is one of Bertrand Russell's prime objections to the Kalam cosmological argument. Here's an example of the logic. No atoms are alive, therefore nothing made of atoms is alive. You can see the problem here. Now, this isn't to say that this logic doesn't work sometimes. There's a good example from carneades.org, I'll link in the description, of a brick wall. Okay, suppose we had a brick wall of which all of the bricks were red. Does that mean that the wall itself is red? Well, yes, of course it does. But suppose we said that every brick was small. Does that mean that the wall itself was small? Well, no. Just because the bricks are small doesn't mean the wall itself is small. Just because everything within the universe has a cause doesn't mean the universe itself has a cause. But it's important to recognize here that we're not saying that there was definitely no cause behind the universe, or if there was, that it definitely wasn't a god. Okay, it's the theist that's making an active claim, and we're simply trying to rebut it. This series, this Arguments for God series, is a series of rebuttals, not a series of arguments, okay, because the burden of proof does not lie with the atheist. But with that out of the way, let's conclude with a summary of the Kalam cosmological argument. So here goes. Everything that begins to exist has a cause. I believe that there was a beginning, not only to everything within the observable universe, but to that universe itself and everything that does, can, and will ever exist. Therefore, there must have been some kind of prime mover, and that prime mover was obviously the god of the religion in which I happen to have been brought up. Checkmate, atheists. I've been Alex J. O'Connor, or Cosmic Skeptic. You can find me on social media here. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.